I mean, this whole Odell Beckham Jr. shit, this is just drama right now.
Yeah.
This is crazy. It's something that never happens is happening where some people are saying, well, what they're doing is against the CBA, so that should be a penalty. They should get suspended. And then and I think there's actually maybe a reasonable fight on that particular stance. And then another one is, well, the Browns are in an interesting predicament here. Interesting. They cut OBJ, one of the most electrifying wide receivers, one of the most popular players in the NFL. They cut him. He doesn't get picked up by anybody through the waiver wire. They still owe him money, and he can go play somewhere else. So he'll get money from the Browns, and he'll get money from another team. The money from the Browns is $8.05 million for the rest of the year. Then if they cut him and he gets picked up in the waiver wire and goes somewhere else, they don't account for anything. The new team picks that up. So maybe that's what the Browns are hoping for. But now they're just excusing him from practice. Allegedly, he's been wanting to practice, but they're excusing him from practice. The word usage is a big deal because I guess they can't force him to not be at practice without a suspension, which, I mean, there is just so much at play here, and it all revolves around. There's probably been other pieces to the puzzle, but the OBS post seems to have potentially really bubbled everything over to a point that Baker Mayfield said any conversation would be cool. Not just an apology, but any conversation would be cool. And then he was asked if he was hurt, and he says, nah. Surprised? Yes. This is via Ari Mirov of Pro Football Focus at My Sports Update. AJ, it's drama. Like, it feels like this
What are they trying to do? Like,
yeah.
you laid it out. What I know Stefanski, yesterday or whatever, said the GM is talking to Odell's representatives. So what does that mean, though? Can you say, all right, well, you got to restructure, take a pay cut. We owe you $3 million for the rest of this year, and then we cut you? Is that how it works?
So, but then if...
So another team hopefully claims him? I don't get it.
Yeah, but if they cut him at $3 million, then somebody's definitely going to claim him, right? Yeah. So I guess that's good news. But then
he probably doesn't want to be claimed, though. He wants to be a free agent.
Claim, you have to go through the waiver wire. The waiver wire is determined by, like, draft order. So that's shitty teams are at the top.
The worst team that claims you gets you.
Yeah, and they all put in claims, and then it's the order of preference depending upon how good of a football team you are. If you're a bad team, you're high. So Odell Beckham Jr. would be agreeing to a deal of less money, then probably going to a worse team somehow.
Yeah.
So Odell's not going to agree to do that. You know, like that. So I think what the Browns came out and said is, we'd rather pay him and him just not be a part of the team than any of the rolling of the dice that he's potentially going to clear.
You can't really do
waivers.
that, though. That's like suspending him with pay. You can't do that. Can you just Odell is excused for the rest of the regular season. Is that what they can do?
I have no idea. But then what happens if he's like, no, I'm going to come. I understand I'm excused, but I'm actually going to come. You guys got a good facility here, and I need to work.
If you were the coach of a bad team or the GM or owner, wouldn't you be worried about claiming Odell if you thought you might get him and you only have 1 or 2 wins on the year so far? You're like, what's going to make this guy come into our facility and all of a sudden want to play here? We're worse than the Browns.
So the threat is that he just will retire and not go.
Or just, I don't know. I don't know what he could be.
Well, he's got a track
Akeem
record
Talib
as well.
did that, right?
Yeah.
Akeem Talib got traded from the LA Rams to the Miami Dolphins, I think.
That's what it was.
He's like, yeah, I retire. Gronk did that whenever they were going to trade him.
Detroit.
Detroit. He's like, nah, I retire. You can't trade me there. So is that something maybe? Is that what if Odell Beckham Jr. was to come to a financial settlement with the Cleveland Browns, okay, to get out of this contract? He retires. Now they still own his rights. Would they have to just trade the rights at that point because the retirement thing already kicked in? Because that, for me, for instance, I had years left on my contract when I retired. If I was to come back, like, let's say last year, for potentially the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, when the kicker and the punter went onto the COVID list on a Monday, and they had a game on that Sunday, and I know a lot of people down there, and I kick and I punt, and everybody down there basically knows that. So maybe that happens if I had the antibodies and I didn't have to sit in a hotel for 5 days.
Mm-hmm. Can you trade rights after the trade deadline?
They would have had to trade me to Tampa, but would the Tampa have picked up my contract now is the question. So then the trade, do we go just right back to that thing, and then you can't trade because we're past the trade deadline, which is what you do. I don't know.
I hear that Barry's talking to Odell's representatives, that makes me think terms of release. And in that case, they're trying to come up with some financial settlement to release him, and hence he would be free to sign anywhere.
So his contract would still be 8.05 if it was to go somewhere else, but if he doesn't end up somewhere else, we only want to pay you $5 million. Could you put that for we'll only pay you $4 million or $5 million, whatever it would be? Could you put that in the contract? Is there any grounds for that in the past, I wonder?
If you could trade him, maybe, but you can't trade him.
Yeah, and they know that if he goes on the waiver wire with that $8 million still
Right,
there.
no
No one's
one's
going to
gonna
pick
get
him up,
him.
and then they'll be on the hook for that. So they're trying to talk that number down, but he doesn't want to come
Well, that's
down
what I'm
'cause why would
saying.
he?
I think what they're trying to do is, I think they're trying to set a clause in there that if you don't get claimed, we would like to only pay you this amount. And I
Okay.
wonder if there's any.
Can you do that?
Yeah,
though?
that's
Does
what I'm
the
saying.
PA, is there something with the PA?
Oh,
in the
fuck the
league?
PA.
And-
The fact that he even has to go through the fucking waiver wire at this
I'm
stage of
telling
his
you.
career.
Yeah.
I mean, are you kidding me, dude? What are we even doing there?
And why?
And what do you think they're doing right now in Cleveland? What are they talking about with his agent?
It's all about money, right? They're saying like, look, we'll let you go, but we want money back. I mean, this is always to follow the money, right? Like to me, I said this 2 days ago. I tweeted it out. I said, look, just cut the guy. You know, it's like free Ferris Bueller, free Odell. Just let him go. Like, he's only going to cause more disruption to your team. He's not going to help you win. He hasn't helped you win in a while. He hasn't helped you win since he got into Cleveland. Let's be real honest. He hasn't been the same player since he left New York. He hasn't. I mean, that's just fact. He's dropped way too many balls. I learned this a long time ago. Ozzie Newsome, the great tight end. You know, when he first left pro football, he came up to join us in the scouting department in Cleveland. And one day we're watching tape together, and he says to me, you know, when I started dropping easy balls, I knew my legs were gone. And I was like, Oz, I don't understand that. Explain that to me. He said, when I started to drop balls that I typically caught, I felt like I had no juice in my lower body. And when you watch Odell, he drops a lot of balls that he typically should catch. And because of the injuries and because of his career, the way it's gone, I don't think he's got juice left in his lower body. I really don't. And that statement, Belichick and I still talk about that Ozzie evaluation, and that was 1992 when he told us that. And I see it with Odell. And I think he's just not been the same player. And I think with Cleveland, Cleveland's on the hook for the money, right? They're on the hook for the money no matter what they do. So why would Odell do anything but take all the money?
Quick question here, just a follow-up. Now, there is a video that's like 10 minutes long that OBS put out, Odell Beckham Sr., about Odell being open, and although he did drop some balls, I think there are still some plays. So that whole thing on whether or not he's still got juice in his legs or not will be literally determined here as the time rolls on. And we'll all be able to see it, I think. We'll all be able to know. He might go somewhere with a different quarterback, different scheme, and absolutely tear it up. I don't think any of us could have a clue at this point of what's going to happen, honestly. And I think that's not a good thing for Odell, because he was a lock that he's a superstar just a couple years ago. Now it's like we don't know what's going to happen. And I think that is what's holding up Andrew Berry in Cleveland, right? Because if they cut him, and I didn't know this, and I guess this is a rule that has changed, I didn't know that vets had to go through the waiver wire. That's kind of fucked up. So if they cut him and he gets picked up, which he's not going to, with $8.05 million left, there's no way that'll happen. They'll pay him that money, and then he'll be able to go sign somewhere else and double dip, right? And then if he gets picked up in the waiver wire, that's good for Cleveland, right? That's great news for them. That's what they're. Why didn't they trade him? Did they not know this was potentially coming? And do you think this has been handled how you would handle it looking back?
Nobody wanted to trade for him because nobody wanted to. Look, let's go back to Von Miller, right? Von Miller got traded because Denver paid $9 million for a second and a third round pick. That's really the transaction. Denver paid $9 million and they got a second and a third round pick because they were going to cut Von Miller at the end of the year. They were going to pay Von Miller $9.5 million all the way through. So they traded him for a second and a third round pick. They spent $9 million for a second and third. It's a good deal for Denver. It's a good deal for the Rams, assuming he can play at a better level. Okay, so that deal. Odell, nobody was willing to pay. Nobody wanted to take on the money. So Cleveland was going to have to pay it, and they were going to get no compensation for him. So why do we trade him? Okay. Now here's what happens on the waiver wire. If you're a vested veteran and you after the trading deadline, you must go through the waiver wire. But your contract the following year becomes null and void, meaning that you become a free agent at the end of the year. Okay, so it isn't like they assume your whole contract. You become a free agent. So even though Odell's on the books, I think $17 million next year, he would be a free agent. But in perspective here, Odell's going to be a free agent next year anyway. The Browns are going to cut him at the end of the year. So they couldn't get any compensation for him. They're on the hook to pay him, and I'm sure they're deciding, should we just keep him? Should we get rid of him? And then Odell Sr., who I got to take the class he took in computers because I don't know how to do what he did. That's just how he put together that video. I mean, I'm in all of it. I really am. I don't know how the hell he did it. I don't know how to do all that Snapchat.
Yeah, he posted it sideways. He's a good follow on Instagram. I think that's why I got so many eyes, and I assume somebody potentially edited it for him. But the fact that he's put that out there, everybody assumes, okay, Odell probably feels the same way as OBJ probably feel the same exact way. And then Baker comes out and says, like, any conversation would be good, let alone an apology. And is he hurt? No, but he's surprised. So it's like, if that video's out and OBJ's ghosting Baker, you could see how Baker's potentially like in a whole different place, and you don't need that type of thing in your locker room. So Andrew Berry, by excusing him, is trying to eliminate that immediately before deciding what to do. Is that what's going on?
I think he should just cut him. I don't know. I don't know what the conversation is, because the agent's basically saying to Andrew Berry, Andrew, you owe me the money. Either you let my guy in the building or cut him. That's the conversation. And Andrew, I don't know what he's trying to get out of it. He has no options. Andrew has no cards left to play.